unregulated
weed industry.
I hate that word, black market. We're live at 5.
Live at 5? It's 4.
It's 5 at Mountain Time,
it's
right?
It's 5 in Colorado.
It's 5 in good old Colorado. Which
and
means
then all those other states that Colorado is also on.
Mexico?
Maybe Wyoming.
Texas?
Maybe. I don't know how to do that.
Are stoners supposed to be good at geography?
I don't think that there's like a limit on what they're supposed to be good at.
Oh.
Some of them might be.
Some of them might be. Stoners are good at everything. Bill Gates smokes. Oh, I shouldn't. Bill Gates is a touchy subject right now. Skirt! Edit that out in production. What's going on, guys? G.I. Mary Jane, the Commander-in-Chief, with my partner in crime, Zig, and Zag's growling at Freedom Gym in the background, walking this way. I think he's going to join us.
Just started?
Yeah, man, you're right on time, bro.
I thought you were going to start like an hour ago. I was like, I wonder if I'm not getting the notification. I kept checking the page and looking.
Some things came up, you know.
Yeah, that's life.
Went down again.
You want some M&M's?
M&M's. Jim comes with munchies, too.
Comes with candy.
God bless America.
The shareable size.
God bless community.
Not fun
Wait,
size.
is that COVID?
Yeah, it has a
regulate?
secret. It has a secret technology that as you pull it out, it disinfects the M&M as it comes out.
It's just like the
Trump
White
told me
House
that.
press corps. It's vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, mercy. The shareable bag. So, Mars, is that who makes M&M, right? Mars hasn't caught up with social distancing guidelines.
Still selling shareable bags.
Yeah, so
it doesn't say shareable up to 10.
Kudos to you. I want to see you know what, I've actually seen this before in a Colorado market, and I forget the name of the grower, but the pouch looked much like a bugler pouch, and it said shareable cannabis on it, and I was super excited because, yes, you should always encourage sharing nature and sharing goodness, not forcing it. Sharing it.
Not when I'm low.
I'm going to do what everyone in the audience should be doing and share this feed really quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of shareable.
Share your M&Ms. Share your marijuana.
Share this.
Share your ideas, because that's what changes things. Sharing ideas. And as always, we're going to be keeping track in the comments. This is the last couple days of 420, 2020, 30 days of 420. The only one we'll get for another 100 years, and we were stuck inside. What in the actual... Seriously.
What
a huge bummer.
Fuck is the word you're looking for.
What kind of world do we live in? What kind of world? Seriously, guys, I'm getting excited. I know a lot of states are starting to open back up. The cannabis industry wasn't too affected by this, I don't think.
Thankfully.
And speaking of, stimulating your brain with some cannabis, when you get those stimulus checks, make sure you throw that back into the cannabis industry, because you do vote with your dollars one way or the other. I mean, even though there's not an election going on, the court of public opinion is stronger than the court of law in a lot of different instances and circumstances, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty powerful, the court of public opinion, considering... Remember that baker that wouldn't bake the cake for that gay couple? The government said, yeah, that's cool, you can do that. But then they went out of business because everyone stopped supporting them. Even though the federal government was like, yeah, that's cool, the court of public opinion ruined them, so...
You have more power than you think.
Happen.
Yeah. Charlie Fawcett said, nice bong. Funny story about that bong, actually.
It's a good one.
So I was staying in some federal land in Nevada, and the federal police that were patrolling this area said that they were going to have dogs in the area later to search, and even weed's illegal because we're on federal land. So I took all my weed stuff and I put it on the roof rack of my motorhome. And then forgot that my bong was up there and drove around for over a month with it up in this roof rack, not protected, just bouncing around on dirt roads and highways. And I was like, oh man, I better go up there and
save her
and see what kind of condition it's in. And I went up there and it was fine. Not a problem. So yeah, appreciate it. I do like that bong. Hey,
Good
Glenn.
Good old stoner ingenuity. Is that, I mean, that's technically engineering, right? The glass blowing?
Yeah, it's engineering. Yep.
There's a whole science behind it. I've heard from different glass blowers.
Fascinating watching that be done.
Yeah, it's like there's a weak spot in all the glass, and you know how you blow it, not the shape, but like the way. It's awesome.
And you can ask G.I. Mary Jane here. I'm really
anal
retentive about my glass. Like those people who like take your glass pipe and bang it on ashtrays or hit it with a lighter. Like I'm like, stop it. Stop doing that to my pipe. And I gotta try to do it nicely, but it's still like, could you not bang on my pipe like that? Because here's your pipe and glass lesson for the day. Glass actually retains stress. So every time that you bang or ding your pipe, it makes it a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker. And I bet you all will agree with me. How many of you had those pipes that like, oh, this thing's so tough, you've dropped it 100 times and it didn't break, right? And then you are like tapping it in your hand and it just falls apart. Because that was the last little bit of stress that glass could take. It saves everything forever, like a hard drive.
God, that's always rough too when your pipe breaks. I had a pipe. It was a Sherlock. It was this little red Sherlock. It was like one of the first glass pieces I ever purchased, and legally. Because you can't buy glass artwork under the age of 18. It's not cool. But I love this thing, and I think I was probably 20 or 21, maybe, right around that age. But a friend of mine had it in his lap and got out at the gas station, and we all know what has happened before because it's happened to us before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it fell, and I was mortified. Didn't break, and it fell on the concrete. But yeah, like months later, banging it on an ashtray.
Yep, falls apart.
Fell apart, and I still blamed him though. So I guess I was right in my blame, even though you shouldn't.
Accidentally right.
You shouldn't shift blame.
Yes,
unless there's a lesson to.
But and it comes from the days of Prohibition when like even a kind of a shitty glass pipe was like $60 fucking to buy. Now you can get a really good pipe for like $10-15. It ain't no thing.
Pennies on the dollar.
But yeah, it still goes back to that Prohibition time in my head. Like, ooh, be nice to my glass.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Like I don't know how old you are that are watching. I know a lot of you are my age or older, but yeah, it took a lot. Like you literally, depending on your job, and like you had to leave your neighborhood because you didn't want like your PTA mom friends seeing you walk into the head shop, right? So you had to leave your neighborhood. You had to get up all this money because, like you said, the pipes weren't $10. It was a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more demand. Like there was a higher demand on this stuff because it was illegal. Imagine that. The laws against this stuff actually caused the price to go up. Meaning people had to pay more money for it, and then you had to hope to God that you didn't get pulled over and look a little bit nervous with your clean pipe on the way back, because Lord knows, even 10 years ago, actually, that happened to me in DC.
You want to go drive down and meet Mac at the front? He's looking for Wanda, and she can't find her way here.
Oh, we have another visitor.
Out the front.
Just at the.
He walked down there, but he hasn't.
Well, sweet. Jim's gonna head off.
But he doesn't know where she is, and he wants to go see it. He just messaged. Is Jim busy?
That's my phone ringing, by the way, guys.
Busy.
I can't answer it right now.
He just wants to help you look for Becky. He probably wants your van.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive to him.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys. And somebody decides to call right now. Oh my goodness! It's my beautiful little 10-year-old.
Candy with.
That's incredible. Well, that's kind of. Do you want to take over for a minute?
Sure.
Let me step off here. You guys, I have this gorgeous little boy calling me right now, so time out. You're in great hands.
Oh no! What do I do?
What do I do? You remember that Wayne's World scene? No.
So I'm gonna post this video in the comments because this is a Japanese anti-marijuana video that I just found just before we went live. And it looks like, I mean, it's all in Japanese, and it even has subtitles, but for some reason they're also in Japanese. Probably for deaf people, but it looks like it's like some old school dare bullshit, and it's targeted to keep kids off of marijuana, which, that's whatever. But they actually portrayed marijuana as like these villains, in some sort of like anime video game, and it's got like flying weed monsters and shit. So I just posted it. It's hilarious. When we're done here, give it a listen. While G.I. Mary Jane is calling her 10-year-old that she misses very much, I am going to bring up some of the weed news. First of all, let us know what you're smoking on in the comments. We just went to the dispensary yesterday and picked up some blueberry cookies. And I don't know about you, but cookies are, like any Girl Scout cookies or cookie strain is one of my favorite ones. This particular strain is not labeled as far as THC levels on here. That's amazing. And bullshit. It's got to, doesn't it? It doesn't even have the THC level on this sticker here. I'll be damned. Oh man. So, has anyone heard about the news that's going on with weed maps? Yesterday this was posted that the US government is subpoenaing weed maps. Right? So when the US marijuana industry learned of a federal grand jury subpoena served to Weed Maps owner Ghost Management Group, the news was an eye-opener for many of the business. The story, first reported by Market Watch in early March, noted that a few high-profile cannabis companies were identified in the Weed Maps subpoena. But the original report about the subpoena didn't disclose the identities of several other high-profile legal California companies in the document, such as Connected Cannabis, Puffy Delivery, Urban Leaf. So this agency, Marijuana Business Daily, which is the news agency I'm reading right now, obtained a copy of the subpoena. The subpoena's wide-ranging demands for information serves as a reminder that the U.S. Department of Justice will not allow the industry to operate unpoliced. Even after years of largely unfettered growth, at a time when Mary Jane remains illegal at the federal level. So, for the last, since we've been legalizing marijuana, the feds have, for the most part, been like, okay, states' rights. They've still raided some legal cannabis shops, the feds have, the DEA, but in the last 10 years, maybe less, they've kind of been a little more hands-off until now, it would seem. The industry will want to watch this case carefully because, like the forced closure of Sweet Leaf by Denver officials in 2018, the Weed Maps development might prove to be a milestone, whatever the outcome. In all, nearly 100 cannabis businesses and individuals are identified in the Weed Maps subpoena, including company employees, officers, and various investors and others in the industry. Why would they want to know that information? Like, what is their goal? Bottom line is that the feds are showing they're not done investigating cannabis, not done prosecuting cannabis, a California attorney Matt Kuman said after reading the subpoena. Among the revelations, the investigation is partially focused on Weed Maps' relationships, both licensed and apparently illicit California cannabis companies. Weed Maps, headquartered in Irvine, California, is a popular website. Yeah, we all know what it is. It's just describing what it is. Alright, so, as for comment on the subpoena, a company spokesperson wrote in an email, "From time to time, Weed Maps receives requests for information from government agencies. We cooperate with these requests as we do with all lawful inquiries." I don't know how lawful it is to be asking for your employer's names and addresses. Plus, shouldn't you already have that? Like, we're all taxpayers. I mean, are we really, though? As for comment on the subpoena, I just read that. Weed Maps didn't elaborate or confirm if it had submitted request documents in federal authorities. That kind of goes to show, like, should we be using Weed Maps if they're willing to cooperate with investigations like this? There are other websites out there. Food for thought. The federal government's probe, which apparently is ongoing, is being conducted by the U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of California. So this is California prosecuting Californians. This is your tax dollars, this California tax dollars, going towards prosecuting you for having cannabis, or where you buy your cannabis, prosecuting them. These are your neighbors your loved ones, maybe you got friends and family who work in dispensaries, they're not off limits. They're willing to do it in California. This will set a precedence that will be echoed throughout the entire country. All the federal courts are going to be able to look back on this case and be like, but, Your Honor, they did it in California, and it was okay. So, when this is the norm, but your rights aren't, you're under tyranny. My personal opinion. I'm going to get back to the comments because I was reading an article, and I'm missing G.I. Mary Jane reading all these. Got, Glenn is smoking on Grape Ape and some White Widow. AJ Fisher, sup, dude? What up, dude? I don't know if I'm getting all the comments, yo. That's a tragedy, isn't it? Let's see if I can get it a different way. Alright. Nope. White Widow is so old school, man. Like, I remember smoking on some White Widow, like, shortly after high school. Shortly after I stopped smoking swag, I was smoking on White Widow. But we all remember the swag, don't we? We all remember having to clean out our weed, all the stems and seeds. And if you forgot a seed, you ended up like hitting the bowl and it would pop and it would shoot all your crappy weed all over the floor. I remember those days. If you're just joining us, G.I. Mary Jane's seat is empty because her beautiful 10-year-old boy called and she did not want to miss that call. So you gotta deal with me. I am Zig. And in about 2 weeks or so, we're going to be changing the platform a little bit. You are used to G.I. Mary Jane reading the marijuana news from the perspective of the victims. And we are going to pick that up here in a couple of weeks.
On May 10th, 2020, 5/10/20, because fractions are cool.
5, 10, 15, 20. We skipped 15.
No, 5/10/20 is an increase of 5 times 2 is 10 times 2 is 20.
That's fair, but in the year 1520, it was a much cooler date. 5, 10, 15, 20.
You're right. You're right.
So I've been smoking without you. That's where I'm at.
I just heard from an awesome little guy who's having a hell of a time logging into YouTube. Everybody's having interweb problems right now, but you know.
And what you missed is I read this article to them about the California U.S. Attorney's Office subpoenaing weed maps for information for different dispensaries. And this was announced yesterday.
Yeah, I heard rumors of that months ago, but it hadn't happened yet. They actually, see, there you go, guys. Like, here's why I've got an issue with federal legalization. Because legalization gives them the authority to
say that you can do it.
That's a discriminatory action. What do you need my information for being part of weed maps? Like, wasn't there a whole like lawsuit where Facebook was told? You guys hear that? That's actually the joint bell or the joint
That
conch.
is the Garden of Freedom's conch, one of those shells that they blow in order to announce that they're about to smoke a joint.
Time to smoke a joint. But we're going to stick here with you guys because it's 420.
Oh,
that's what
shit.
the fuck is going on right now. Happy 420! And stuff. Oh, no, the dogs are mad. The dogs are mad. Ugh. I need some water. It's very dry here. We're actually going to do a little bit of traveling and exploring here tomorrow. There's only 2 more days after today left of the 30 days of 420. So I don't know how frequently we're going to be doing these live feeds anymore. But I hate saying that because look at you guys right now participating. And I think that's effing, I mean, that's
sweet.
Cool. That's really sweet.
We like you guys too.
We love you guys too. We love everybody in the cannabis community, even those of you who don't agree with everything that I agree with. Hey, we don't agree on everything, do we?
If I agreed with you, then we'd both be wrong.
We both, exactly. Yeah, love your neighbor, guys. There's been a lot of shit on Facebook where, you know, people are arguing with each other about a difference of opinions. Like, just don't. Just, stay true to your intuition, your light, and what your soul tells you to do. My soul's telling me to shut the fuck up and hit this bong right now.
Aw, she called me her soul. That's what her soul's telling her to do.
Ooh.
So Glenn Grier said he was smoking on some Grape Ape and some White Widow. There aren't any really new comments going on.
Did you guys see the bud? Did you show him the big bud?
Oh, I did not show him the big bud. I tried telling the THC count that, and it was not listed. Do you see it on there? I don't. Isn't that amazing? Milligrams, yes. But not THC percentages.
It might have been on the receipt, but yeah, there's no jack shit on here.
So Bubba Sparks is watching. What's up, Bubba? So Bubba, I met him in Slabs, and he was doing Bubba's breakfast. And
I love breakfast.
yeah, 3 days a week, him and his brother would cook meals for the community, and people could show up and they'd, spend a little money on food, but it was never too expensive, nothing that Slabbers couldn't afford. Today, that same trailer you used to cook in, by the way, is an art studio over at Rabbitside.
Oh, cool.
They bought that old trailer and have now turned it into their art studio. And it's awesome. I have pictures of the outside of it. Still has like the running toast and breakfast guys, all cartoon dudes on it.
I love it when a community can work together for a better good despite their differences. Isn't that funny how you can do that unregulated? This was a huge bud. But I guess
My
we've been
bad.
smoking it, huh? What is this? Grape something or the other?
Something like that. Yeah, some fruity Swisher Sweet.
Swisher Sweet? This is pretty. Grape sour, I don't know. All those red hairs, that's what I look for. I'm like a sativa caryophyllene specific chaser. Just because that's my thing. It doesn't have to be your thing. But that's them red hairs. You got, what do they call them? The reds and the perps back in the day. That's how people thought they were getting.
I called it swag, and it didn't have hairs.
It didn't have hairs. It was all squished up together in some brick that came over across the U.S. in the donkey's intestinal
It
tract.
tastes like high school.
Dude, I mean, I can't believe, like, if that's not a testament to the fact that, I mean, Prohibition doesn't work. It didn't work with cannabis. It only created a more dangerous situation. Like, people weren't dying from weed until they started having to deal weed on the streets, right?
And in shady conditions.
In shady conditions. Same thing with, I don't care how strong you're talking about, mushrooms, coke, heroin, like all these things. And sure, the coke, the heroin, some of these things, they do legitimately cause death. Like sugar causes death. I can't really put them in different categories other than the severity of how it happens. But regulations don't work. In fact, quite the opposite. Like even in states that have legalized recreational cannabis, they're seeing a drop in teen usage.
They're not stopping people from using it. Think of this. Like anytime you ban anything, anytime the government says don't do that, they've never stopped it from happening. Murder still happens. All crimes still happen, right? So the only thing that they're doing is creating an illegal market for it.
Right.
That way they can justify federal funding in order to stop that illegal market.
It's unfortunate. It's
That's your tax dollars going to arrest your neighbors, your loved ones, because they chose to do whatever substance it was. We like to focus on marijuana.
I don't care what it is, but I mean, you cannot sit here with a straight face and tell me that throwing somebody with, say, a heroin abuse problem, right? Throwing them into a cage is going to help their addiction any. It's going to cut it off right away, right? Which A, may cause medical complications, right? For one. B, the mental health implications if there's not like proper psychiatric care right there prepared for. That doesn't make a better person. That makes an angrier person who ends up becoming more prone to violence than they would be before, wouldn't you think?
And the evidence shows, when you look at the safe injection sites, when the people who are able to take their substances in, have them tested, have clean needles to use, have a nurse there to recommend a dose, then you get to see, in comparison to the people who are just thrown in jail and told that they're criminals and now they'll never be able to reintegrate with society, the difference. The difference is there's more successful sobriety out of the safe injection sites than there is out of prison.
And that's not condoning the
Period.
use of heroin. Like, I'm not going to sit here and condone the overuse of sugar, for crying out loud. That can legitimately kill you and is addictive and scientifically has been proven. What I condone is making sure that you keep your body healthy no matter what substances you're putting in them. But I'm not here, and nobody else should be here to shame somebody for making improper decisions, because we've all done it in our life. One way or the other, we've made decisions that, and it can be something as silly as shopping too much,
And every
that
single
have
one of
destroyed
them,
our lives.
every one of those decisions was a personal decision that you made, and whether right or wrong, it was your decision to make and your lesson to learn. There's no sense in using the government, men with badges, to force your decisions on other people. That's their choice to make.
It's something we really have to pay attention to. And I mean, I posted the Platoon 420 pledge, and I think it's worth reading again, because it couldn't ring any more true. And again, this was written sometime last year, and it bleeds out so far past the cannabis community, I think, at this point.
It really goes to any moral conviction that you have. Honestly, I feel like if you're not hurting anyone, like, do what you want as long as you're not hurting anyone. You're not creating a victim. It's your choice to make.
Like, and to that, do as you want. That doesn't mean that I condone, like, bad behavior, right? But I don't think that somebody, for being badly behaved, okay, and maybe causing a vocal disturbance, say, okay, should be then in return had physically assaulted, have hands put on them, just because somebody else was offended by what they did. And keep in mind, being offended is all perception. Everybody's offended by different things. And I don't know. The libertarian in me can't go out on the limb and say the cannabis community should be a protected community, but it should. But the what you do with your body community should bleed out from that. Should be a protected community. The human community should be protected.
And Tevin has just asked a pretty interesting question. So what if you are creating a victim, then what should you do? What
should who do? Should the
He
community
said,
do?
well, at first he said I, and then he corrected it to you. I think he basically just means we in general. I don't support any activity that creates a victim whatsoever. And I think that those should be crimes. And I think that those should have consequences put on them. I'm not anti-laws or regulations. I'm anti-laws and regulations that make criminals out of peaceful citizens who have created zero victims. Like the person that has a personal amount of heroin or mushrooms or cannabis that hasn't created a victim. That's a personal choice that they're making. So...
yeah, even to the, and I hear this argument a lot, and it is valid. Well, the heroin dealer creates a victim because the person who bought the heroin died. Well, you got to stop at the person who bought. It was a voluntary action. Now, tell me, though, if you had an open market for these substances, okay, and somebody walked in and you bought legal heroin from the pharmacy, say, if that
You
heroin,
mean like they used to do?
yeah,
Wow.
like they used to do.
Before
if
they made
that
those people
heroin
criminals?
killed you, the pharmacy would be liable. The guy on the street is not liable. So if we really want to protect the community, the only way to do it is to destigmatize these things and bring them out into not a place where it's acceptable, where you're condoning. Like, and again, I don't condone the overuse of any substance, be it something as simple as sugar or as serious as fentanyl. I do not condone the overuse of cannabis. You can, and plus, I think once you reach a certain high, you can't get any higher. So if you're overusing cannabis, you're only hurting your own wallet.
It's like too much vitamin C.
Yeah, it's not gonna help
making
you.
expensive pee.
But I mean, I don't condone that, but for different reasons than I don't condone the overuse of heroin, right? But so there's always reasons. Everything should be done in moderation, but nothing should be restricted.
Not by the government.
Not anything that is done between consenting adults or to yourself, and to the argument that, well, the addict hurts his family. The gambler hurts his family. Okay, the guy who overshops hurts his family.
The guy who overeats.
The woman who spends so much money on plastic surgery because of her own insecurities. That affects her family. The
hoarder. All these things are legal.
That's for them to deal with. You know what? And 9 times out of 10, kids grow up from families like that, and they shun those families, and they make sure they don't act that way for their children. So the residual effect ends up being good, even though, going through childhood with somebody like that, and a gambler, a user, I don't care what it is, somebody who does something in excess, there's negative repercussions to that. But it can be turned into positive things by the individual who experienced it. In moving forward, you can pass the compassion onto your children and onto your community and show them a better way to live in your actions based on the trauma you experienced. You can't stop people from being douchebags. You really can't. You can show people.
You can shame them if you don't like it, but you don't need a guy with a badge to make people stop doing things that you don't like because they haven't created a victim.
No, man, it's very frustrating.
Patricia Glatz just joined. That's my beautiful grandmother in North Carolina.
Hi, Grandma.
Hi, Gram. Love you.
Humid North Carolina.
Yeah,
mountains or beach?
She's right on the coast.
Nice.
My old stomping grounds. So yeah, I used to spend a lot of time on the coast of North Carolina doing surfing and getting sunburned. So
yeah, man, we used to go to Nag's Head every year. I did a bunch of work with a hemp farm in North Carolina January last year, but in Franklin, North Carolina, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and completely different from
the coast,
coastal area. It's like two different. I guess the East Coast is good for that.
The one thing about the East Coast I do like is that the ocean is warm. Like, you get into the water and it's like at nighttime sometimes warmer than the air.
It's also gross though.
And where I was at was Emerald Isle. So if you saw that post about that soldier that was like World of the Free or whatever, I'm sorry, he was sailor, and Land of the Free, and he was standing in the ocean. That was actually at Emerald Isle, my old stomping grounds, and that's now our claim to fame, but
cool.
It's a pretty clean area, so the ocean was quite beautiful where we were at, kind of more rural than, like, let's say Miami. But the one thing I do like about the East Coast is the ocean is warm, and you get up here into California and Oregon and Washington, it's just not. At least in the southern area, it's warm.
I like North Carolina. I've never had a problem with it. I like traveling.
I don't like their weed laws whatsoever. I got busted in North Carolina by a DEA agent for having a bowl of swag on me. It wasn't even on me. The bowl was under my buddy's seat where he was sitting, and the weed was on this other kid. I didn't have anything on me, but we all went to jail. So,
Lord.
Thank you, DEA.
Of course, because you're dangerous. Yeah.
I'm such a dangerous criminal.
Spending all those taxpayer resources and putting the community even further in debt collectively, though, that's not a danger to anybody in the community, is it? Not having resources. I can't even make sense of this anymore in the free world. And actually, interestingly enough, I'll pull up the article. I shared it earlier today, either on my page or on the Platoon 420 page. But we're going to get more active in that, guys. Oh, thank you. Huge shout out to Rob Heckman, 98 Rock Baltimore's very first and most awesome program director, who's responsible for so much metal hitting the seeds, for your generous contribution that will allow me to get this website back up and running where we need to. Oh, the store's still there, though. So the t-shirts and the coffee, the CBD coffee and the CBD products and all the fun Platoon 420 merchandise that was being thrown around before everything got shut down. That all is still available, so make sure you check that out. But the article, going back, this article was about a bill that's been introduced on a federal level by some lobbyists and activists from different organizations that is requesting, because the stimulus money, this trillion, however many dollar package that they're using to fluff the economy, that you guys only get $1,200 of. Great. Go. Anywho, part of that, they allocated some money to the hospitals. They allocated some money to the airports. And ironically enough, the free market didn't get to decide who got bailed out. But the representatives who you voted in, to be fair, let's not blame and finger point everywhere, but some people have entered a bill asking that some of this money be allocated to the cannabis industry, which I have mixed feelings on because a lot of them are loans, so they're actually putting the industry further in debt. It's like, here, have some of your money back at an interest rate. I can't even make sense of
Here's
this.
some debt during a crisis, and we're going to loan you your own money, but you have to pay it back to us with interest, so we can make a profit using your dollars.
But considering the status quo is the way that it is, this is a good pawn, chess piece to move around in saying, look, if the federal government deems that some of these the stimulus funds can be allocated to the cannabis industries, they're kind of admitting that prohibition, in terms of federal level prohibition, this whole Schedule 1 thing, is absolute bullshit. So while I have mixed feelings on that bill and the business loan out thing, I wish the people who entered this bill for the cannabis industry all the luck in the world. Because again, if we're playing the game the way that it is right now, this is a positive step forward in getting things to ultimately change and delivering more freedoms back to Americans. Americans everywhere, not just Americans. We've got viewers from other countries, according to my old YouTube, which is kind of cool.
And if you are in another country or you are having loved ones, you visit other countries, you have loved one, family in other countries, friends, ask them why they're not communicating with their governments to force them to end the prohibition. Because this isn't just an American issue, is it? This is a worldwide prohibition on a plant.
They tricked an entire population, an entire global population. They tricked all of us into thinking that this stuff would literally kill you. Like, how?
Or make you crazy.
Doesn't that blow your mind that happened? Like, how you...
I was crazy long before I smoked cannabis.
I don't need this to be crazy. I need this to not be crazy, right? No, and not to use the word crazy in a negative connotation, but, people say, well, weed will make you crazy. And we're actually finding out that the people you're calling crazy, weed helps them not be crazy as they're labeled.
The majority of the states have now accepted the fact that it has medical benefits for mental health conditions.
Dude, but I don't want to force North Carolina to have weed laws. I just want the federal government to drop this bullshit where it can walk into a state that says we don't mind weed and start literally shooting people and dogs, usually dogs, generally. I'm looking that up. Do you take a guess? Here, wait. Trivia. How many people are watching right now? Oh shit, like 5? Not a lot. Okay.
6 on mine.
Oh yeah? Well,
oh, fancy.
Fancy. Superstars.
I might be one of them.
All right, well, you 6 people are in luck. Or 5, because 4 maybe, because I'm watching. Trivia question. On average, how many dogs do police officers kill every year? It blew my mind. What do you give me some thoughts, and I'm going to look it up.
I actually have no idea.
Let me see.
I bet you it's more than chocolate kills dogs.
How many dogs get shot by police in America every year? I've got the sound turned down because you can't cheat, stoner. Ugh. Okay, this article calls it the growing epidemic of cops shooting family dogs. So we're talking about locking people up for a pandemic because you might be sick. Why aren't we locking up cops for the epidemic of them killing so many family pets that it's prompted pages and pages and pages worth of op-eds and articles on Google? Do you have a guess yet? Just put a number on it.
I'm actually looking up how many dogs die of chocolate, just to compare it to dog. I want to see if chocolate's more or less safe than police.
All right, I've got it right here. And this comes from a site called Criminal Legal News. This is published in 2018, though. So and then the other article that says the growing epidemic of cops shooting family dogs, that was in 2019. So we've got an increasing problem. Where the hell are you, PETA, of cops shooting dogs? They shoot people too. There was a 16-year-old shot with a replica gun. I didn't say much more on that in Baltimore. Good old Northeast Baltimore.
Yeah, they just said it was a replica gun. That could mean so much.
Anywho, are there any guesses yet on the live feed? Let me go peek.
Oh, yeah.
Let me go peeky poo.
Nothing.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So to put it in perspective before I give the answer, one person is arrested for cannabis every 50 seconds in America. How many seconds are in a day?
I don't know.
Is it 60 times 24? Yay, math!
There is 86,400 seconds in a day. So take that and divide it by 50.
Mm-hmm. I don't have mine. Woo!
86,400.
Where does my calculator app even live?
That's 1,728 people arrested every single day in America for cannabis. I know towns that are smaller than that.
1,700 people are put one way or the other.
That's like my entire school in high school.
And this doesn't mean that they stay in jail forever, but they get ticketed, they get taken in, they get booked, they get processed. You get charged, you being the taxpayer. Usually they get released and they have to pay a ransom, a fine.
A fine.
So they call it a fine to the state. So then not only are they doing all this, right? They're interrupting your peaceful day on your couch with your bong, using your money to lock you up with, and then demanding that you pay them more to stay out of the cage. Okay? Then they're coming around. And shooting your dog. Oops. Accidentally. Right? And these dogs are not off leash, on leash. This is a mixture of both. At a rate of 30 dogs every single day.
Wow. So that is that's more dangerous than chocolate. Police, on average, are more dangerous for your dog than chocolate is.
That's ridiculous.
You can fact check us.
And there was I'll have to post it again. My loyal followers, you guys should see this. I post all these ridiculous articles because they are ridiculous. I forget what state it was in, but the cops raided the wrong house. They entered the backyard of the wrong house. They were the house across the street. It was a weed raid.
Swing and a miss.
Shot the family dog in front of the 3-year-old little girl. No charges. They're allowed to do this.
No
while
charges.
They're allowed to lock people up.
No charges. That apparently, according to the government, is not a crime. But if I was to go to the same people's house, walk in, and shoot their dog in front of the child, can you imagine what I'd be charged with? But if I'm wearing a badge and I've gotten permission to raid their neighbor, it's okay.
But it's not okay. Do you think it's okay if your uniform is different than mine, that you get to act in a different manner?
Of course not. That's what the government decided, though.
No, we're giving them too much power. It's time for a change. I feel a change in the air, and it's kind of funny because I feel like cannabis is the only issue that hasn't been made a partisan thing. Like, they try to be like, only Democrats like weed, that lasted
a lot
like
of Republicans
month, right?
are like, yeah, but we do
We
too.
smoke weed too. It's a very nonpartisan
Hank
thing.
Williams said it was okay.
Right, my country singer said it was fine, and whatever.
I was gonna sing it.
Which one?
Oh,
I don't know that one. I don't know. I probably do. I know the Willie Nelson weed songs.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Hank Williams sang about smoking joints.
Everybody sings about smoking joints because cannabis is a human thing. It's a human right, and it's been prohibited in a free country. I have a gnat trying to fly into my mouth right now, but no, it's a absolute human thing. You cannot argue with me on that. I'll wait. What race or religion or country uses weed? None of us. We all do.
The entire human population of all cultures use cannabis. It's a melting pot.
It's a thing. It's not just cannabis. They use nature and have been using nature long before science became a thing. And now all of a sudden we're not allowed to use nature. Science is great, right? And the advancements in science are wonderful. But why do we have to stomp on nature's ass to move forward science? We don't have to do that. Isn't it okay to have both, right? You reach for the pharmaceuticals for a worst case scenario when your healthy diet, your vitamin C, your water, your nature, when that doesn't work. Why?
I think people have just forgotten that the government responds to us and not the other way around.
They do.
Unfortunately, that's the climate that we're in. We've accepted that we respond to the government when it's clearly written that it is not supposed to be like that. They're a result of what we do.
It disgusts me that we, the people, have allowed the drug wars to go on for so long. Because it's in our hands.
So many victims out of people, out of peaceful citizens, out of our friends and families.
And now it's easy. Like, before you had to write letters and get your town together and go walk into a building back in 1950 to talk to your representative. I mean, we get email now. If you got a fire under your ass about something, instead of taking it to Facebook, take it to your county representative.
Take it to your local government.
How about that? Oh, and
you want to change the world? Start local.
That's it. There's I'll post a link. Dad Talk Today. It's a podcast that some friends live in. Well, I think they live in Baltimore and North Carolina. They simulcast this thing together. See, you can do anything now. We're in the age of the internet.
It's 2020, dog.
But Dad Talk Today made an app where you can go in, and this is particularly geared for people who are being victimized by the child support racket. But separate from that, they have a button on there where you put your zip code in, and it gets you right to your state representative's information, their phone number, their email, whatever is listed that they were able to collect and categorize within this app. So, shoot, maybe that's something we could do
on GI Mary Jane.
On GI Mary Jane, but that's only if you guys.
If you guys want to know who your local representatives are, just send GI Mary Jane or I a message. And I'll look for you. Like, I'll help you get involved. There's a shared inbox. We'll use the platoon. There's hit info. Do you know how to spell info? Tell the children. I do. INFO.
Fo.
What up, fo?
At platoon420.com, and that'll get you to the shared platoon inbox. And we love to answer your questions. And visit the website, take the pledge. Then we'll have your information. If there's a way or a reason to mobilize and something is coming up, we'll be able to notify you about it. Rallies, events, virtual events, as it may be now. I think everything's going to start getting back to normal. I'm done talking about it, to be completely honest.
I sure hope so, because this gray area, this diet martial law, I'm getting kind of sick of.
I don't want to be distracted from what I'm already passionate about, and that's freedom of choice. And it's funny, I say I don't want to be distracted by it, but the distraction literally is taking away your freedom to choose what to do with your health and your body.
I can't go to a gym right now to be healthy, but I can go to McDonald's so I can stay healthy.
Look how little my arms look. I've got a lunch lady arm. This is not...
My arms are always about this wimpy ass size.
Come on. This is not okay. It's not okay. No, it's not. And AA meetings have been
You're
canceled.
Like retired GI.
I am retired GI. I'm like Lieutenant Dan now. I'm a wheelchair guy.
But you ain't got no guns, Lieutenant Dan.
Retire, Mary Jane. Retire. No, I'm not ready to retire. I can. It's in me. Like, I was trying to liberate the monkeys in freaking kindergarten. It's for anybody watching. Like, an activist is just anybody who cannot keep their mouth shut when they see an injustice happening.
Absolutely.
That makes you an activist. You don't have to be, doing a podcast or directly like shaking hands with your representatives to be an activist. All you have to do is live by the principles of freedom and show your community that fearlessly you will not back down from them.
And AJ Fisher, speaking of activism, just said, we got a great grassroots movement gaining momentum in Iowa. Went to my first state convention this year, #libertarian.
Yes.
That's what's up, dude.
I was supposed to be at that convention, actually. When was Iowa? It's on my calendar. I'm glad you went, though, AJ, and, everybody can do that. Just look online, especially right now during election time. There's all sorts of conventions and meetups going on for the Socialist Party, the Communist Party. That's actually a thing in America. The Democrats, the Republicans. If you really want to know, it's there. Go talk to these people.
We're not just limited to parties.
No, and you can go to a convention at a group you don't agree with, and I encourage you to, because it's important to know what they think and what brings them to
that thought process, and then
what
you
they
can
call
decide for yourself.
rationale.
Yeah, then you can decide for yourself. You know what? Now I've heard it from the source, not from those guys over there, and I have decided that I don't or I do like this. That's your personal choice.
Or maybe you can address fears that these people have and put them to rest, you know? But it's really important that we communicate and don't put ourselves in the boxes that society wants us to be put in. You know, we mentioned we went to that Reopen Arizona rally, and it was very, very Republican leaning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, quite literally, they were, you know, it was very Christian oriented. They prayed. They had a group prayer. There was the Trump bus was actually there.
They told us to vote for Trump.
There was a bunch of MAGA hats all over the place. Whatever.
But
see, that shit
what?
doesn't bother me. I mean, for that to bother me, like, I'm just as bad as a racist, right? Like, that guy doesn't agree with me, so I'm going to shun him and hate him.
But you know what else I
It's
saw
not
there
good.
at that same protest is I saw minorities that had Biden shirts on. I saw Libertarian presidential candidate Adam Kokesh there. And I saw flat earthers there. There was all sorts of people that protested the closure of the state that we're in.
And I saw stimulating conversation between
Right.
the two. And realizations being had. And even people going, buddy, you know what? I don't agree with this, but you're cool, and hands being shook. And it didn't matter at that point. Everybody was there for one
same
greater
goal,
purpose.
to
you
stop
know?
what's happening. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so stop putting yourself in a box around election time. I've always hated election time for that reason. I mean, people literally lose friends and family members stop talking to you based on who you vote for. And you know what? I'm loud about my vote, but I've volunteered to help out the campaign, so I can be. But before that, like, one of our most sacred rights in this country, separate from free speech, was voting and the ability to do it anonymously, privately, because you don't get that luxury in some countries. You get actual pressure from the government in charge and threats for who your vote goes to, if that's the case.
Or
right?
you don't get to vote.
Yeah.
Or all your candidates are one party.
My parents never even shared with each other who they voted for, because it's nobody's business. If you want to talk about it, you can, right? But it's not something that you have to talk about. And if somebody tries to tell you otherwise,
It's also not
that's
something.
rapey as fuck.
It's also not something that you have to convince anyone to agree with you on either. Like, at the end of the day, you've got your thoughts and they've got theirs, and both are okay because neither are hurting anyone. They're just your political leanings.
No, and the world is never going to drastically change with any elected official, because everything in our political process takes time, takes approval by different groups, and so yeah, nothing's ever going to. People act as if there has to be this huge fear if somebody that they disagree with gets put in office. It's only 4 years. I feel like that should be 2 years.
It is for the people who write the laws. It's 2 years for your Senate and your Congress. So it already is. Those are really the masterminds behind it all, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's every 2 years, and the presidential election is every 4 years.
And maybe there's a method behind that mayhem that I don't understand. And I'd love to talk about that with somebody. I'm not just going to be like, I think it should be 2 years and that is what it is and I don't want to learn anything else about it. It's like, I think that right now, from an uneducated standpoint, I don't know if there's a method behind that.
Well, the state elections are all 2 years for your local representatives, the ones that represent you at the state level and at the federal level. And then the figurehead who says yes or no to the laws that those people write happens every 4 years, and that's the president. And that's his only job, is to say yes, no, veto, not veto.
But see, these representatives, there's no limit to how many terms that they can have, correct?
True. So there
I
are
don't like
lifelong
that either.
members. There's no term limits on anybody but that one guy that is not just yes or no, because he also leads the military. But it's still why I think that you're right. I'm all for term limits on our state representatives, because that might actually give the everyday man the opportunity to step up and lead his local community. But when you're going against the incumbent and they have decades of donators that they've spoiled, there's no way the everyday man's going to be able to generate the funds that it costs to overtake them.
Not only would it give them the chance, it would encourage them to be active in their community. I think would be an end result of that. But yeah, once you get so much money and popularity, and when I say popularity, I don't mean it by, you're popular because the community agrees you have views. You're popular in the few people with a lot of resources that you have backing you. Like somebody like, I'll say it, Biden and Sanders. They're fucking career politicians, right?
Yes.
Hello. In order to be a representative, you have to be in touch with your community. If you're in an office, for quite literally 10 hours a day or however strenuous these people's schedules are, flying back and forth from their home state to DC and doing all this stuff, and sure they get breaks, but they're small breaks. How you don't know what's going on. There's no way for you to, if you have a strenuous job at a car dealership where you're working 12 hours a day, you don't know what's going on in your community past that car dealership, do you?
Probably not.
Probably not. And neither do these politicians. They have no idea what's going on past their office. So how can you rationalize to me that they get to stay right where they're at? And why have we the people allowed it to stay that way? Even sheriffs are the same way.
Yep, you can have the same sheriff arresting you for marijuana forever.
But nobody
so long
votes.
As people keep voting him in.
Nobody votes for like the every 2-year poll thing or
Yeah, the voter turnout for local elections is embarrassing.
Focus local, guys.
And AJ Fisher nailed it. He said get involved locally, and you're absolutely right. You want to change the world, start at home, start in your heart, start at home, and then start with your community. And you don't have to do it through threat of violence. You can do it with your voice because you have one, and no one can take that from you.
Lead by example, right? Didn't Jesus say that?
Probably.
Buddha too, probably.
Love thy neighbors,
Muhammad,
some stuff like that. Throwing rocks in houses of our glass.
Come on, guys, this is basic shit we knew in kindergarten. Like
I did learn it in kindergarten.
You did, because if Jimmy was playing with the ball and Johnny wanted the ball, if Johnny was a dick to Jimmy, teacher wasn't gonna let him play with it, right? If Johnny was nice to Jimmy, they got to play together. This is simple math.
There's actually a book out there. If anyone wants to read it, I'm just gonna plug it, not because I'm getting paid, but because I actually did like the book. But it's called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten.
It's true.
And it's like got all the morals that we teach kindergartners that we've just decided we didn't have to follow anymore because we grew up and got more all mature and shit.
My phone.
Ring.
This one's gonna ring next.
Well, it is 4:57.
It's about that time. We can cut it short. I think it was a good day.
Short.
Yeah, we've got a lot of visitors showing up. You guys didn't see it in the background, but apparently, based on the Wi-Fi signal I show on my phone, the Love Bus showed up.
Love Bus showed up.
Pretty sure Ernie
it's
Hancock.
Beautiful.
Semi-famous podcaster, libertarian Ernie Hancock is, I believe, in the Love Bus over there. We'll find out. We've got Wanda on the way, who has an awesome YouTube channel. Max already here. And we're actually going to hit the road and do a little bit of traveling here pretty soon. My ringtone is so cool. I'm actually happy that it made it. What is that? Do you guys know? I know what it is. I know you know. Cool people know what it is.
What is it?
Look, AJ. So
oh yeah, it takes them all a minute. Yeah, it's been busy out here. We have a new member that just showed up 2 days ago. We have Ernie Hancock showed up today, and Wanda's about to be here. She got lost on the way in, which is so easy to do.
Yep, it's an intentionally off-grid community. It's there's privacy everywhere.
And we're back.
And we're back to say goodbye. No, it is. It's
Zelda.
It is Zelda. You're right. And it's 4:59. We've been running our mouths for an hour. I'm gonna get back to life, right? Life. That's life.
That's what all the people say.
Be sure to keep your eyes open. We'll be back in full podcast format. I almost said formula. Full podcast format, which is going to stream on What are all the podcast network?
Yeah,
iTunes,
all the
iHeart,
things.
blah.
It'll be on the things.
It'll be on the things weekly. We're going to report the drug war news, and you'll be able to more easily share it with your community. And we're planning on doing that May 10th, 2020.
It's 2020, dog.
2020, dog. G.I. Mary Jane and Zig out. Yo.